Minnesota's capital city doesn't always get the same attention as its larger twin, but St. Paul has a charm all on its own. I live in the Twin Cities now, so it's a city that I'm very familiar with. In this video, I'll briefly cover St. Paul's history, population, skyline, as well as a few things that make the city unique. Now let's meet St. Paul. I always like to start by exploring how a city wound up being where it is today. St. Paul is located on a sharp bend of the Mississippi River about 12 miles downstream from Minneapolis. The area has been inhabited for around 2,000 years, with mounds from the Hopewell tribe still visible today. The first European settlement was originally known as Pig's Eye, after a French fur trader's tavern, but was changed to the more dignified name of St. Paul in 1841 after a Catholic chapel was built on the bluff above the city. St. Paul's prime location made it a key stop for traders and settlers, and that growing importance led to its designation as the capital of the Minnesota Territory in 1849. In the late 1800s, St. Paul became a major railroad hub, as home to both the Great Northern and Northern Pacific Railways, helping connect the Midwest to the Pacific Northwest. By the turn of the century, St. Paul had cemented its place as the political and logistical heart of the region. Today, St. Paul has a population of around 307,000, making it the second largest city in Minnesota after Minneapolis and the 62nd largest city in the country on paper. Together, the Twin Cities metro area is home to roughly 3.7 million people, which would rank it as the 16th largest metro in the country between Seattle, Washington, and Tampa, Florida. The Twin Cities metro has a large amount of Fortune 500 companies, but some of the most recognizable companies headquartered on the St. Paul side of the metro include Ecolab, 3M, Securian Financial, and Land O'Lakes. St. Paul is home to around 10 colleges and universities, the largest being the University of St. Thomas. Call me shallow, but when it comes to cities, I think appearances matter. Although St. Paul's skyline isn't going to blow anyone away, I was pleasantly surprised by it the first time that I visited the city. If you took the average height of its tallest 5 buildings, it would rank as the 52nd tallest skyline in the country, falling short of Orlando, Florida, but being taller than the much larger Phoenix, Arizona. The tallest building in St. Paul is Wells Fargo Place, which stands at 471 feet or 144 meters tall. Another notable building in the skyline is the Art Deco First National Bank building, which has a giant 3-sided First logo on the top, which is illuminated at night. The real stars of St. Paul's skyline, though, aren't necessarily its skyscrapers. They're 2 domed historic buildings overlooking the city. The first of these that I'll mention is the massive Cathedral of St. Paul, which is modeled after St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. I can't think of a cathedral within America that sits more prominently within a city's skyline than St. Paul's Cathedral. It's a stunning building and is equally impressive on the inside, with the large dome rising 186 feet above the floor. The other domed landmark sitting on the hill overlooking St. Paul is the Minnesota State Capitol building. The building's white marble exterior gives it a bright and unique look. It has the second largest self-supported marble dome in the world, only trailing St. Peter's Basilica. The golden quadriga sculpture sitting in front of the dome also levels up the building's appearance. Overall, I think it's the 3rd best looking state capitol building in the country, only trailing Connecticut and Iowa's state capitol buildings. Another impressive building overlooking the city is the mansion of the railroad tycoon James J. Hill. James J. Hill was known as the Empire Builder because of how he transformed the transportation and economic landscape of the American Northwest through his railroad ventures, particularly the Northern Pacific Railway. James J. Hill left such a transportation legacy that the Amtrak route between Chicago and Seattle is still named the Empire Builder route in his honor. His family's Gilded Age mansion in St. Paul is incredibly impressive at a size of 36,000 square feet. The James J. Hill Mansion isn't the only impressive historic mansion overlooking the city. It's the last home on Summit Avenue, which is the longest stretch of Victorian-era homes in the United States. Directly across the Mississippi River from downtown are the Wabasha Street Caves. The man-made caves were carved into the sandstone nearly 200 years ago. In the early 1900s, the caves contained the Wabasha Street Speakeasy and purportedly were visited by various mobsters. Today, the caves are used primarily for live big band swing nights. In the center of downtown St. Paul is another beautiful historic building, St. Paul's Landmark Center. The beautiful castle-like structure was designed by Willoughby J. Edbrook, who also designed the old post office in Washington, D.C. St. Paul's Landmark Center was originally a post office and courthouse, but it's now an arts and events center. A block west of the Landmark Center is one of two major sports stadiums in St. Paul, Grand Casino Arena, which is the home of the Minnesota Wild. Hockey is a part of the culture of Minnesota like it is in perhaps no other state, so filling up the 18,000-seat arena isn't difficult on game day. The other major sports stadium on the St. Paul side of the metro is Alliance Field, which is home to the United FC Major League Soccer team. The modern 19,400-seat stadium is the newest of all of the Twin Cities major sports stadiums, having only been built in 2019. In the center of downtown is one of St. Paul's most iconic restaurants, Mickey's Diner. The unique dining car-styled restaurant opened in 1937 and is still open today. One of the things Minnesota is broadly known for are its cold, long winters, and St. Paul leans into that fact by hosting the St. Paul Winter Carnival. Having started in 1886, it is the longest-running and arguably largest winter carnival in the country. A central feature of each carnival is a giant ice palace, which is often assembled in downtown St. Paul. St. Paul has the largest urban Hmong population in the country, and just north of downtown St. Paul is a large marketplace known as Hmong Market. It, along with the nearby Hmong village, together have hundreds of vendors and provide a cultural experience that just doesn't exist in other American cities. And I'll finish by mentioning what is Minnesota's most famous destination, the Mall of America. Now, the mall is technically in Bloomington, Minnesota, but given that it's only 20 minutes from downtown St. Paul, I thought I'd include it in this video. It's the largest mall in the country at over 5.6 million square feet in size. It has over 520 stores, and at its center is a 7-acre indoor theme park. And in the coming years, it's looking to add what would be one of the largest indoor water parks in the country. Well, that does it for my video on St. Paul. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.